Hey guys, back with another video, an impressions video, and this is what I'm going to do from now on. I've been doing reviews for a long time now. I used to call them impressions videos, but someone recommended, I forget who recommended this, but recommended that whenever I play a game that I don't like or don't finish, to still kind of do a video on my impressions for that game. And that's something I've actually been wanting to do because, you know, I usually do a review on a game I like, because when I review a game, I finish it. So it's one of those things where a lot of games I've played that I just either think are okay and I just stop playing them, or I hate them, and I don't really talk about them much because I don't really feel I can properly do a review on those games. So from now on, I'm actually going to do impressions videos on games that I don't finish for one reason or another. And from the title of this video, you might be surprised, an impressions video on this game. Trails in the Sky second chapter. I had no physical game to show you or any gameplay because first off, this is going to be a spoiler-free review for people that haven't played first chapter and for people that haven't played second chapter. So I'm not going to talk about the story too much, but yeah, this is an impressions video because I'm not finishing this game. As much I like, this game is actually kind of disappointing to me. I wasn't crazy about Trails in the Sky, but I did like it. I thought it took forever for the story to get into high gear and for things to pick up, but it took its time with its character development and its world building, and eventually it kind of grew on me, and by the end I was enjoying it, and it ended off on a hell of a cliffhanger, and I really wanted to see where things would kind of pick up in second chapter, which is a game that has been in development for a very long time, troubled development, and this game, it's an old game, but an English localization, it took a long time, and finally Xseed was able to get one out and release the game on PSP digitally and Steam, which is the version I played, and I really appreciate the effort. A ton of dialogue in this, like the script is huge, and it took a lot of effort to get this game out in the West, and I really appreciate that, but I hate this game. I can't stand it. I'm sorry, I hate it. It's kind of surprising to me because I really did enjoy the first game. I didn't love it like a lot of people did, and I didn't like it mostly for the gameplay, and that's where I think second chapter really falters with a few different decisions, and I think this is going to be something that's not going to bother some people, but for me, it was enough to stop the game. I am at chapter 3, the very end of chapter 3. I've put in about 20 hours into it, and I can't continue. Actively playing this game is a miserable experience for me. From the very beginning up until the point I haven't enjoyed a single second of actually playing this game. Now, the story I actually am really liking, and we'll talk about that first. It picks up right after the first game, so if you haven't played Trails first chapter, play that first. Don't dive into this one. You need to have played the first one, and immediately things are exciting, and it's great to be back with these characters that I really love so much, and it starts very strong. It's amazing. The opening of this second chapter is amazing, but soon enough you find yourself in the exact same environments from the first game, and there's kind of some good and bad to that. The good is the fact that all the NPCs you've met throughout the first game, you kind of get to see again and talk to them and things like that. And it's just a joy getting to see all these characters again. And in that sense, it's really cool. And the sense of world building is really great. But the bad thing is that you're running through these environments you've already been through, and you're running through these dungeons you've already been through. There's a few new environments, but not that many. Pretty much this entire game takes place in the exact same environments you've seen in the first game, with a lot of the same enemies too, except you're higher level now. I think you start at like level 40 or 45 or something like that. But most of the 20 hours I've spent with this game is backtracking through these environments that you've been to countless times before in the previous game, and it gets old fast. So that's one of the kind of annoying things with the story. I kind of wish, and maybe this happens later, where you go to some of the bordering countries. It takes place in one country, but I hope that's the case, but I don't think so. I think this whole game takes place in the exact same areas that you were visiting in the first game, which is pretty disappointing to me, but at the same time, there are some good aspects to that. But it's definitely one of the things I'm not crazy about with the second chapter, but the problem is with the story in this, it starts off like really exciting, and then an hour in, you're back to like the beginning of Trail's first chapter, where you're doing a bunch of needless busy work. Now, a lot of this does tie into the main story eventually, but I feel like a lot of it is just padding. And now, having played the entire Trails in the Sky first chapter and second chapter, 20 hours of this, I'm convinced that there's just the story that they're trying to tell here. Like, I get that they're trying to build these characters with a lot of dialogue, and they're fleshing out this world, but this is like maybe 30 to 40 hour storyline stretched out to 120 hours. Because as far as I know, second chapter is like 80 hours long. This game is apparently huge. So I think, like, I don't mind things taking too slowly, but like, I'm sorry, it's just too much here. Like it took till chapter 3 in second chapter for the story to actually start getting interesting again. And that actually makes it even more of a shame, because the gameplay gets worse and worse while the story gets more and more interesting. So finally things started to pick up in chapter 3, but like, God, like the amount of needless busy work throughout most of this game. And there's like a lot of like these, not really fetch quest-y type of quest, but like these really annoying quests where you're just wandering around aimlessly, back and forth, like backtracking through all these areas. It sucks, man. It's such a bummer. So yeah, the story, I really want to see how this ends up, because apparently it wraps up in a very satisfying way. But I'm going to have to just go on YouTube and watch a Let's Play or something, because I can't stand this game. And let's get into that. Let's get into the gameplay. The reason why I hate this game so much. The first game I liked. I mean, the battle system is, the first game wasn't amazing. It's your kind of typical turn-based battle system. There's not much new here. It's got like this grid-based thing going on, but it's essentially a turn-based battle system. You've got like your magic points, which are EP points, and then CP points, which kind of increase as you take damage and deal damage, and you can do different moves with that. The battle system here is the exact same as in first chapter. The only new thing here are these team attacks that you can do. You can like team up with your other characters and do team attacks, but they're honestly not that useful. For regular encounters, they're fine, but you need a large amount of CP, and I find like the CP moves that cost like 100 CP, like all your CP, I think those I find to be the strongest and most useful, and I'd much rather just save up CP to use those instead of using these team attacks, which aren't really all that powerful, honestly, from what I've seen. Maybe they get stronger later in the game, but one of the disappointments here is I really was expecting them to improve this battle system in some interesting ways, because it was one of my weaknesses with the first game. I think the battle system, honestly, is pretty boring, and there's just not that much to it. And it's slow as fuck. In the first game, it wasn't so bad because enemies didn't have a whole lot of health, and the game was relatively easy throughout, so it wasn't too bad. Battles were quick enough, even though the actual animations in battle were slow, and it just took forever to take your actions. But in this game, holy shit, like almost every battle in this game against bosses or enemies, you're fighting at least 3+ enemies. When you're fighting 3 enemies, it's not so bad, but when you fight 5 enemies plus, it takes forever. And one of the reasons is because of these incredibly slow animations on your characters and the enemy characters. But the fact that enemies and bosses in this game, and this is actually my biggest complaint with second chapter, the enemies and bosses in this game have a ridiculous amount of health. And now I started on normal mode, and one of my big regrets, actually, is not going with easy mode, because having not really enjoyed the gameplay all that much in the first game, I am playing this for mainly the story. I really should have went with easy mode, where enemies would have reduced health and do reduced damage, because again, this is one of those games where it has a bunch of difficulty levels, but they're basically meaningless, because all it means is that enemies are going to do more damage and have more health, which, I'm sorry, that's not difficulty. That's not difficulty at all. That is that's just frustrating and needless and stupid. So on the normal mode, enemies and bosses have the most ridiculous amounts of HP I've ever seen in an RPG. I haven't played an RPG with this like damaged, spongy enemies before, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves with video games. And here, it's it is the biggest nuisance ever. It's like, it's a miserable experience. Every battle takes for fucking ever in this game. And the boss I'm stuck on right now, I'm stuck on this one boss. It's like a tank. And you do no damage to this thing, even with your most strongest attacks. And a lot of enemies in this game don't even have many elemental weaknesses, especially the bosses. They don't have any elemental weaknesses, so magic is not that powerful. One of the characters I have right now is a melee focused character, and he's pretty decent against the enemies at this point. But the bosses, like each boss in this game, has taken me 15 minutes plus. It's excruciating. The battles in this game are excruciating. So between that and the battle system being boring and not improved whatsoever and being slow as hell, I just hate the actual gameplay in this game. And other than the fighting, you're going through these dungeons that most of them you've already gone through before. And these dungeons are just these giant mazes with like a bunch of different corridors, and you're just trying to find the exit as quick as you can. Enemies are just thrown about haphazardly with no rhyme or reason. You've got these really simple puzzles in some of them that are just boring to do. And then of course, you have the aimless wandering around and running around that you're doing when you're not actually being involved with the battle system. You've got a bunch of side quests, which, again, like with the first game, flesh out the world in some interesting ways, and they're more in-depth than a lot of side quests in most RPGs. But I found most of them in this game, you have to wander around aimlessly, trying to find like a needle in a haystack with a lot of these quests. Like one, you have like a bunch of riddles that are being given to you, and you have to find these obscure locations throughout these cities. And most of these side quests, I would get them, and I'd be like, as soon as I found out what you would have to do with these side quests, I was like, fuck this, I'm not doing this. Like, this is a waste of my time. And all you get is money, which you get enough money just going through the main story, enough money to get all the weapons and army you need. So, like, the quests are pointless to do, and they're irritating. Some of them are cool. There was like this casino quest that I thought was kind of cool, but most of them are lame. And then you have the monster quests, which again are lazy, and all the bosses, like I said before, they have ridiculous amounts of HP, and you're fighting an insane amount of enemies at once. And most of the bosses, I would get to them, I would see that there was 5 of them. And again, a bunch of enemies and bosses in this game love to regenerate their health. Oftentimes to full health once you've got them down to a good amount. And once they're almost dead, they'll all of a sudden just get all their health back. I cannot, this game is so annoying. I can't stand playing this game. Like, everything about it just rubs me the wrong way. And like every second of it, I was hating every second of it. And to the point where I was going to quit this game multiple times. There was multiple times, but I just said to myself, you know what? No, I enjoy the story here. It's getting interesting. I really want to see how this wraps up, but I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't. I just hate playing this game. The gameplay is just abysmal in my opinion, and it's actually made me think even less of the first game. Especially when I combine the two, I don't know. I'm honestly kind of disappointed with this game. I'm really disappointed with Second Chapter. I was really, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess they feel like they needed to up the difficulty because it's the second chapter and things are ratcheting up in the storyline. But I'm sorry, you don't just make enemies have an insane amount of health and do an insane amount of damage. That's not fun. That's just irritating. I'm sorry I'm getting really ranty and aggravated here, but it's just... this is this is the most pissed off I've been with a game in a long ass time. I can't remember like hating a game this much as far as like its gameplay goes. To the point where it's like, as good as the story is, I can't do it because I just hate the gameplay so much. But I mean, I guess that about covers it with the gameplay. There's not much else to say. I mean, it's just everything in terms of like playing the game. I didn't like at all. The visuals, it's the exact same. It looks the exact same as first chapter because it came out fairly soon after in Japan, I'm pretty sure. But I like the sprite work. For some strange reason, though, the Steam version runs like shit. I tried adjusting all these options, and I've got a really good computer, so I don't know why the frame rate was atrocious, but it was for me. It's still not a huge deal, and it only really happened, like, it would only slow down in towns for some reason. Like, the actual battles were fine for whatever reason, but I do like the look of the game, even though it's definitely outdated at this point, because it came out, so long ago. The soundtrack, it's mostly a bunch of reused songs. along with a few new ones. But the soundtrack is very good. If there's one thing about this game that I really love, it's the soundtrack. I liked it in the first game, but listening to a lot of the songs now, I've forgotten how good the soundtrack was in that first game. There's a lot of tracks here in this game that I like a lot, and the new songs are really good as well. But yeah, no voice acting, a lot of text to go through for sure, and a lot of people are gonna not like that either. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else is there. Like, I mean, it's almost the exact same game as the first one. If you just like don't like think about the story at all. But you know, it's really a shame. I really wanted to like this. I was kind of looking forward to playing this because I did like the first one. But again, I think I was just able to get through that game because the enemies didn't have an absurd amount of health and they didn't do a crazy amount of damage. So you can just kind of breeze through it. There's also an option to retry battles once you die, and apparently it will make things easier. But this boss that I got to, I died 5 times and retried each time, and it didn't look like there was any difference. Like, if there was a difference in difficulty, it was very slight at best. So that didn't help at all, which that actually helped me a little bit in the first game, but here it doesn't seem to do anything. So yeah, now I could replay the game on easy mode, but you can't change difficulty. Once you've gone with the difficulty, you're stuck with it. So I would have to do 20 hours of the game all over again. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. And even then, even with playing on easy mode, I just don't enjoy the battle system. I don't enjoy like the actual gameplay here. So I don't. I might even actually like still would have put it down even playing on easy mode. But yeah, it's weird too. I've seen a lot of reviews on this. Apparently, a lot of people really love it and think this is better than the first one, and it probably is in terms of its story. But like, I'm sorry, I hate the game. You know, I got to be honest. I guess it's just not my thing at all. Yeah, I don't know what else there else is to say. I'm definitely dropping this game. This is why it's an impressions video. I would still say maybe try out the first one. But at the same time, just knowing that it leads to this is I don't know if it's even worth the effort, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, if damage sponge enemies aren't a problem for you, maybe, I guess, and you want to just go on easy mode, which if you've completed first chapter and you haven't started second chapter yet, play easy mode. If I can stress one thing, play easy mode. You will, trust me, you'll be sorry, I think, if you do anything higher than easy. Like, there's like the expert mode or whatever. I don't even want to imagine what that's like. Like, that would be the most oh my, I can't even imagine how much health enemies have on that mode. Like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, that's it, guys. Trail's second chapter. I know, sorry, like I think a lot of people will probably enjoy this, but I don't know, I just hate it's been a long time since I've hated a game this much, but that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.